Welcome to the Friends Fantasy Benefits Baseball Podcast. I'm Justin Mason, lead fantasy writer and analyst of friendsfantasybenefits.com. Joining me, as always, is Dave McDonald. Dave, how you doing, my friend?
Well, it's not always these days. You have been doing some solo potting lately, so yeah. I'm doing well overall. I have mixed emotions tonight. Obviously, with DeMar Hamlin's injury for the Bills, very scary. That game is suspended indefinitely as it should have been. Just hoping he's okay. And then on the other side of things, I saw my boy Donovan Mitchell just drop 71 in a huge comeback win against the Bulls, and that most points scored by an individual player since 2017. Pretty awesome. That guy is just he's the total package. I've seen a lot of LeBron games here, and this is the best individual performance I've ever seen in a game. So it's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, I don't really watch basketball, so I do play in some fantasy. Well, I play in 2-3 sport leagues, so I have to follow basketball a little bit. So if you are listening to this the day it comes out, obviously you'll be like, hey, that happened like a few days ago. We are recording this episode on January 2nd. It should go live on January 7th. So if anything happens with the Philadelphia Phillies over the next 5 days, I apologize. But this is, like Dave mentioned, I'm recording a lot of podcasts, 30 podcasts in 30 days, previewing every team. Dave's going to do a lot of them with me, but there's going to be a lot more that are done with me and just a different guest each episode. We don't have a guest for tonight. It's just me and Dave, and we are going to talk Phillies. Just a reminder, you can follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. You can follow Dave on Twitter at RunDMCD. Don't forget that D.
Add that D.
Yep. You can follow Fantasy Benefits on Twitter at Fantasy Benefits. Email me to the show, friendsfantasybenefits@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review. Really, really, really appreciate those who have gone and given us 5-star reviews over the course of the last year or so. But I'm going to actually start pushing for him. So we're going to do this, and I'm just coming up with this on the fly. I will give a random 5-star review a free RotoWare t-shirt.
Ooh, damn.
This is good. This is good through the end of the month. And we'll do one every month until the start of baseball. So through the end of March. So we'll have one for January, we'll have one for February, we'll have one for March. A free RotoWare t-shirt for a 5-star for a 5-star review, a random 5-star review. So go over to iTunes, 5-star review. If you don't have iTunes, steal somebody's phone with iTunes.
I was gonna say, there's no other way to review on Android. It's so annoying.
So I don't know if Spotify does 5-star reviews.
I don't think so.
I'll check. If they do, then do that. And if you have a podcast player that isn't iTunes and you want to leave 5-star review and you do on that platform, send a screenshot of it to me and I will enter you into the drawing, right? So you can do that either via email, justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com, or on Twitter at justinmasonfwfb.
And listen, if you guys want to, still tell us we suck, our DMs are open. You can always
you can tell us we suck and give us 5 stars.
Exactly. You're like, hey, I want to support you guys, but I also want to tell you suck on the down low. We're okay with that. So
I would prefer that you don't do that on the review, but if that's the only way to get the 5 stars and you want to win a free t-shirt, and I won't limit you to just a Justin Mason t-shirt. But if you ask for a Justin Mason t-shirt, if you're the winner, I might get you a second one just for the hell of it.
Wow!
I'm gonna say that.
And if you say Justin sucks, he'll give you a third t-shirt too.
Yeah, and that's probably not. that may disqualify you. Give us a 5-star review. Get yourself entered in to win a free t-shirt from RotoWare. RotoWare is a fantastic company. I probably own the most RotoWare t-shirts.
You definitely do.
And I love them. I mean, I probably got 60 or 70 RotoWare t-shirts. They're absolutely amazing. Kenny sent me some more. I don't know if I even showed you this, Dave, but he sent me Justin Mason stickers. So if you're watching on YouTube later on, you can See, along with a happy holidays from
these are no longer accurate. For those of you who can't see us, Justin's no longer rocking a beard. So these Mason faces, I mean, it's in the baby growing phases.
Yeah, it's been a few days. Yeah, so, it'll be back. Once Christmas hit and I was no longer going to be Santa Claus anymore at any function, I decided that beard needed to go because it was getting way too long. Let's jump in and talk about the Philadelphia Phillies because they are a team packed with talent for fantasy.
Yeah.
And we start behind the plate where you have the number one catcher in the game, or at least I think he's the number one catcher in the game. He's going pretty early in drafts at this point, and I think that's well worth the price. I just drafted him in my most recent draft, which was one of the last Gladiator leagues that NFBC was doing. Dave, what are your thoughts on Realmuto? Would you pay the price for him?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the price, you said it's high. I mean, that's true. But it's also, like you said, it's warranted. I mean, you can look at kind of who else is going around him. And I mean, you've got Francisco Lindor and, Goldschmidt goes a little bit above him. I do love Goldschmidt. But honestly, I think I would take Realmuto over Lindor fairly easily. I mean, Lindor's got more power, but I mean, they're going to hit for similar average. Realmuto might have, especially with the new rules next year, I could see him running even more. I mean, he did have 21 steals last year. Now he is going to be 32 this year, so I am a little wary there, but we also saw him kick in a whole nother gear last year in the second half where, I mean, he hit 15 homers, had 10 of his steals, hit 309. I love the skills. And when you can get a guy like that at catcher, it's such a game changer. And this is a guy who has, had consistently, like 530 plus plate appearances every year, other than his first full year. So, and of course, other than 2020, the short season, but extremely reliable. But I do always have that caveat with catchers where, because they're involved in every play, they are more likely to get hurt. You get a finger jammed, you get a swing hits you, the ball skips into you. There's so many ways to get hurt as a catcher. But as far as it goes, you can't get any better than Realmuto, and he's in a great lineup. He hits in a good spot in the lineup. There's really not much to not to like about him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, he's one of my early round targets, depending on kind of how the draft board falls to me. I think there is an argument this year that you shouldn't take Realmuto because the catching pool in general is just so much deeper and better than it's ever been. That being said, he gives you such an advantage over the rest of the pool. I'm fine with it. So he's a guy that, depending on where I'm at in the draft, if he falls to me, I'll take him. Like I said, I took him early in the second round in the Gladiator format. Now that's a little bit different format. For those who don't know, it's they're no longer. I don't think they're even going to fill anymore this year. So you'll have to wait till next year to even try it. But if you haven't already signed up, but it is a 15 team standard rosters, but no bench. You are stuck with a player you draft at every position. And I just felt like in a place like that, he was a huge advantage because of the amount of plate appearances he gets. He's always like top 3 or 4 in terms of plate appearances every year at the position. And so I took the gamble there. Moving over to first base, we got Rhys Hoskins, who I think is adequately priced. He's fine. He proved that he's healthy. What are your thoughts on Hoskins?
Yeah, I mean, he is what he is. He's a power guy who's going to hit, 245 with 30 homers. There's maybe a little upside there for like 35 homers, but generally this is not the direction that I would go. I mean, you've got, Jose Abreu going around him. I would take him over him easily. You got Christian Walker going after him. I'd take Walker over him. I'd even probably rather take a shot on Andrew Vaughn a couple rounds later. Jose Miranda, I like more. Even Mountcastle, Rizzo. Like, there's so many guys that do exactly what he does that I just don't see myself taking any Rhys Hoskins. Like when he was going later and he was a good value, I was fine with it. But now that he's kind of going, I think a little higher than he should be going, there's not much there for me.
Yeah, I think you're right. But I think he also kind of is him and Walker kind of the last of that tier. And that's why I think he kind of gets pushed up a little bit. I think he's about as safe as you can do in that spot, right? Like, you're going to get around 30 home runs.
Yeah, he's safe.
You're going to get a 245 average and, boatload of RBIs. And you can pretty much pencil in what you're going to get from him. I agree. I feel like, pick 124 right now in DC since December 1st, is a bit high. It feels high. I feel like I should be attacking a different position, especially with the depth at first base. Like, give me Josh Bell at pick 190 in a different position that I'm attacking at 120.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Bell, you could easily see Josh Bell having a better year than Rhys Hoskins next year. I mean, he's not as safe, but I mean, 70 pick difference. So,
yeah. Bryson Stott was a trendy sleeper coming into last season. Our boy Rob DiPietro was a big fan of his. There were a lot of other people in the industry that were big fans of Bryson Stott. He had a kind of up and down year. The final line is fine for what he did. He played 127 games, 466 plate appearances, 10 home runs, 12 stolen bases, hit 234. He's going to have a full-time job, or it looks like he's going to have a full-time job as a starting second baseman in Philadelphia next year. I feel like he's a bit underrated right now. Like, people are overlooking him a little bit. What are your thoughts on Bryson Stott for 2023?
Yeah, I like him, actually. I think the first half, he was he was hitting 200. It looked like he really started to settle in the second half. And I know some of that was BABIP luck, but I think he was also hitting the ball harder. He does a lot of things where you can imagine it all kind of adding up to being a solid player. Like, I don't think there's anything special about him necessarily, but I do think for getting like your middle infield late or whatever, he's going to give you some homers, some steals, and a solid average. Like, I think he'll be better than the 234 he was. Like, I think the guy we saw in the second half is probably more along the lines of what we can expect moving forward. 250, maybe even 260 average. He doesn't strike out a lot. His 19% K rate last year is good as a rookie. Yeah, I just think that there's some things. It's not a guy that you're going to pay up for, but you don't have to pay up for him. Like, for where he goes, which is, where does he go now? Let's see. He's going around 220-ish. Okay. So yeah, I mean, like, you look at the guys that he's going around, and yeah, I'm happy with him. So yeah, I think Stott is the kind of guy you can feel good about as like can kind of help you out all around in every category.
Yeah, he's also second and shortstop eligible with Gene Segura signing in Miami. Right. He's clearly the everyday second baseman. I think one of the big issues with Stott was, like, we didn't know how much he was going to play, right?
Yeah.
And kind of, he had a job and then he lost a job and then he got a job back. But he's kind of cemented in. I think he could be like a 15-15 guy. With like a 250, 260 batting average. And I think that plays at pick 220. So I think he's one of those guys where he continues to add to your balance if you've drafted balance. So I like Bryson Stott where he's going. I think he's, like I said, a little bit underrated this year. Trea Turner is their big offseason signing, or one of their big offseason signings. He is I believe still the first overall player off the board. He is, kind of starting to separate himself a little bit from Ronald Acuna, but they're kind of interchanged. You throw in Jose Ramirez and a bunch of other guys, J-Rod, Aaron Judge, things, players like that. But Trea Turner's almost always going to be, and so far he has been drafted in the top 3 of every draft champion since December 1st. Is he the number 1 overall player for you?
He's the guy who I've been saying is the number 1 overall player for years. And this is probably going to be the first year where I don't think he's the number one overall player, actually. And I think he's fine. Like I don't have much to say about him. You know, he's a 5-category stud. You know, this guy contributes everywhere. Home runs, steals, RBI, runs, average. He gives you everything. And, you know, as he gets into his 30s, you know, we probably can't expect the 30 steals to continue necessarily. Like he had 708 plate appearances last year and still only had 27 steals, you know, especially being on the Dodgers where they don't really need to run, you know, like they've got, you know, great hitters in the lineup after him. I just don't know that now with the new rules next year, he might run more, but then again, relative to everybody else, I don't know that that's going to matter. So, you know, he's still great, but I would still prefer, I think, J-Ram over him, and Ohtani is probably still my number one overall pick. So, especially if they're going to let him pitch every 5 days, like I've heard that they are thinking about. So, yeah.
I'm surprised that it's Ohtani. For me, it's J-Ram is my number one overall pick. I just think the pool of third base.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna have a toss up, and I really do think it's a toss up between Trea Turner and J-Ram, that I'm gonna take the player that gives me the best like positional flexibility. And I think that Jose Ramirez does that. That being said, I love Trea Turner. Like if I end up with Trea Turner at pick 2 or 3, I'm gonna be absolutely stoked.
For sure.
And one of the reasons why you will, unless I forget to set KDS, or KDS runs so quickly, you know, because like a slow draft fills up, and I'm not paying attention. I'm never going to have 1, 2, or probably even 3 early in my KDS. It's just not going to happen. So
because you don't care who calls you at like 4 or 5 or whatever.
Yeah, I think there is a real discussion of like who the top 10 are. Like I honestly want to pick, you know, right around 8, 9, 10.
Me too.
And because I'll get that earlier pick in the second round.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I really don't have a strong preference on J-Ram versus Trea Turner versus Ohtani versus Julio Rodriguez versus you know, a number of other guys.
I know I'm in the minority with Ohtani at 1 if he pitches every 6 starts again, but I don't think there's much. I mean, maybe there's some question, but in my mind, there's not much question that he's the number 1 player if he pitches. I mean, if he gets normal 2 starts like any other pitcher, I mean, that's insane. I know that you only get either the pitching or the hitting. You don't get both. I get that. But that flexibility is so key. I mean, I said I had him last year, and being able to choose the weeks that I can make him either a starter or a hitter. And yes, you're going to miss out on some weeks and whatever, but you know, things don't always go according to plan when you're drafting. And sometimes your hitters are going to fail where you thought you had a strong offense. And now all of a sudden you can move Ohtani, who you thought was going to be a pitcher, to being a hitter, and you can kind of recover. You can't do that with any other player in fantasy baseball. And to me, that is so massive of a difference that I'm willing to take him first overall. But the thing is, you don't have to take him first. Like you can get like the 7th or 8th pick and still get Ohtani, who I think
his min is 7.
His min is 1. His min is 1.
Well, I'm sorry. Since December 1st, like he has not gone in a draft.
Oh, okay.
He's not going to draft higher than 7th since December 1st.
Okay.
You know, so yeah, I think you can. Getting back to Turner, just a stud. Like there's nothing you can say. I think my argument against Ohtani is because he does both. He's just more likely to get injured than, you know, pretty much everybody going ahead of him. And that, I mean, outside of Aaron Judge, probably.
But even when he hurts himself pitching, doesn't mean he can't necessarily hit still. You know, like he was out with, you know, Tommy John or whatever and still hitting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we don't know if that'll be what happens this next time. Like we just don't. I mean, and I feel very uncomfortable with that. And and one of the things I've really tried to hammer home for people is if you feel uncomfortable with a pick, don't make it. Like it's just, I mean, that's you know, and to me, like if I'm at pick 5, and the board goes off Turner, Acuna, Ramirez, and probably Kyle
Julio.
Tucker, or Julio, like I may make that decision, and I do want to get Ohtani on a team this year. But I just have a really hard time taking him over Turner and Ramirez for sure. I think the other guys, you have a real opportunity to make the argument.
I think if I get an early pick, I'm probably going Jose, and then if I get a middle pick, I'm probably going Ohtani, and then late picks, different. Maybe, probably Betts and Yordan Alvarez are my guys later. So
if I felt worse about the starting pitcher pool this year, I would probably put Ohtani one. But I think the starting pitcher pool is so deep that I don't feel the desire to pick a starting pitcher that early.
But you're gonna have so many injuries and times where you're gonna need someone. There's absolutely gonna be weeks where you're gonna wish you could put an ace into your rotation for a week where you have enough hitting to get by.
For sure, it's the guy who drafted Lucas Giolito.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. Sometimes your plans change, right? Like, so you draft Giolito thinking, "Hey, I got my ace," and now all of a sudden it turns out you don't have an ace. Now I can plug in Ohtani, because let's say you drafted enough hitters where he's a utility guy. You can throw your best starting player from any position in your utility position, and then you put Ohtani in at pitcher. Boom, you fixed your problem. So that flexibility is just so unique.
I think we talked a lot enough about Ohtani during the Phillies preview, so we're gonna move it along. Let's talk about Alec Bohm, who's a guy who had a decent little season, but it's kind of meh or bland. 13 home runs, 2 stolen bases, hit 280, which is great. But we're still talking about a guy who played in 152 games, and you got 13 home runs and 2 stolen bases. Are you drafting Alec Bohm at all?
Yeah, we've kind of he's teased us before, 2020 and everything, but obviously that was a small sample. And this isn't a guy who I think is going to hit 30 homers or anything, but his power in the second half, he hit 9 of his 13 homers in the second half. He had big gains versus both righties and lefties in the second half. He just hit the ball better. He has speed. Like, if he wants to run, he can. If he can ever increase his launch angle, I mean, I know we say that for a lot of guys, it's like the Yandy Diaz problem, but if he can increase that launch angle, he can get 20 plus. So, I think the pieces are there for him to potentially break out. Will he though? I don't know. But for where he goes, 179, third base for as shallow of a position as it is, I don't hate it. So he's definitely on my radar. But I'm not going to say I'm super, super excited about him.
Unless I badly need batting average at that point in the draft, I'm probably just not going to touch him. I'd rather have Josh Rojas going after him. I'd rather have Brandon Drury going after him. I'd rather have Ryan McMahon going after him. I'd rather have Josh Young going after him. All the guys going after him, I think I'd rather just have I was a big Alec Bohm fan the last couple of years. In the hard part is he just has not raised his launch angle. Even like you were just mentioning, he hit more home runs in the second half. His launch angle went up 0.4 degrees. That's it. He was still hitting 47% ground balls.
Obviously that's a big problem. It's
a huge problem. If he does raise the launch angle, if we're looking at him in spring, you go, hey, his launch angle looks like it's coming up a little bit. Then I can start.
And who knows if we've seen those gains in spring and then they don't hold too. So who knows if that even matters? But it at least will get you more excited about him.
Yeah. I mean, at least you're not having to pay very much for him. But at the same time, there's still guys going after him that I feel a lot better about utilizing. This year. So
I will say a lot of the guys that you named, I'm not really very high on. So I still kind of the names that you like Josh Rojas, I just don't think is a good hitter. I mean, there's some other guys that you said.
Josh Rojas is a pretty decent hitter. He's a bad defender. Which may cost him time.
I won't have any Josh Rojas, so I don't know.
That's fine.
I don't know. I don't think targeting Bohm. Ryan McMahon. No, I don't. Yeah.
All right. Darrick Hall will be likely the DH while Bryce Harper is recovering from Tommy John surgery. Question becomes, what is his role after Bryce Harper returns? Because it would either likely put Bryce Harper back into the DH as he kind of readjusts to being healthy after Tommy John surgery, or they will put Kyle Schwarber or Nick Castellanos at DH because they suck defensively. Are you drafting Darrick Hall?
So here's the thing. He is intriguing, but the problem is that he's probably only going to be a platoon versus righties at best anyhow. So upside is limited, but at the same time, you can if you play versus all righties, you're going to get a good amount of at bats still. I definitely think there's some pluses here. I mean, he has 17.5 barrel percentage, 44.5% hard hit rate, 113 max EV. The contact rate was 70%, which is passable. Zone contact is 84.7%. That's fine. He struck out 31% of the time and only walked 3.5% of the time. That was the problem. But in the minors, he walked a lot more and struck out less. So a lot of times guys come up as rookies, and this is why I avoid those guys who are higher strikeout percentage guys in the minors, because they come up and you can pretty much add 5 to 7% right off the bat to their K rate. I think he could improve on that this year. I think he could, come closer to his minor league walk and K numbers next year. But like you said, I don't know what happens when Bryce Harper comes back, but when is Bryce Harper coming back? And
June.
Where am I? June? I think I would probably take the over on that, but and where does Hall go? So Hall is going
614.
614. Yeah, I'm 100% in. Yeah, I don't like that term, but yeah, I'm 100% in. Yeah, for where he goes. Yeah, he'd honestly be a target for me.
He's going in the 41st round. That is free. Like
I will say though, he is a utility only player. So in draft and holds, it kind of sucks because usually you're drafting so many guys anyways that one of those guys is gonna be able to play utility, that you don't want to just take a util only guy. But I'm definitely interested in his bat at that cost.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a legit shot that he gets first base eligibility pretty early in the season. I mean, he played almost a quarter of his games at first base when he was up. So like I would say he probably gets first base eligibility. I'd say maybe mid-May. The problem is Bryce Harper is scheduled to come back in June. Even if you push that to the All-Star break, you're getting half of a season from a UT only player that, and a guy who likely is probably, unless there's an injury, is going to head back down to the minor leagues. I mean, I don't think they're going to keep him up as a bench bat.
Yeah. But when you're drafting for, you're worried about current production at the beginning of the season more than, especially when you're that late. I mean,
Sure.
You can basically take him with your last pick in redraft leagues, but in draft and holds, yeah, you're limited to just that early period. I
think where you said is the place to take him is, it's your last pick in a redraft league. You're getting some kind of cheap power early on in the season. You can drop him as soon as playing time becomes an issue. I think that's kind of the perfect place to take a guy like Hall. Let's talk about Bryce Harper, because he is going to miss probably close to the first half of the season. What scenarios would you draft Bryce Harper in?
Yeah, see, I really haven't thought about this much, but I mean, every time people, not every time, but pretty much every time people draft someone thinking that someone's going to be back at this time, it's almost always later than that time. And usually they end up holding these guys for as long as they do. Because you're not able to pick up guys along the way as much because you have to hold that stash spot open. Like you're not able to recycle players, adding hitters who are who have a good week in hitting coming up, who you can add, who can make an impact for that week. So you're costing yourself points along the way while you're waiting for your guy to come back. And yeah, obviously Bryce Harper's really good. And when he comes back, the hope is that he's ready to go and really good right away. But that doesn't always work that way. Sometimes these guys take a while to get in, into a groove. And, depending on the injury, it could affect their hitting. I just tend to stay away from these situations where a guy's going to miss more than other than the first week or two. If it's something like that, I might be willing to make an exception. But when we're talking about missing a month plus, I'm generally not doing it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like he's unlikely to be on any of my teams except for leagues in which I have like unlimited IL spots. And so if you are in a league that has a lot of IL spots, or unlimited IL spots, like I get taking the gamble there. But that's a long time to wait. You may be out of contention by the time he's back.
Yeah,
like that's just like and so you could be potentially like wasting a really productive spot. He'd have to go just really, really cheaply in a league where I have unlimited IL. Just and I only play in one league like that. So Tout Wars, only chance I probably have at getting Bryce Harper. All right. Moving right along into the outfield, we've got Kyle Schwarber, who had a massive year, right? I think if it wasn't for the fact that Aaron Judge had 62 home runs, people would be talking a hell of a lot more about what Kyle Schwarber was doing in Philadelphia. Where are you taking Kyle Schwarber?
Yeah, I mean, the power is massive. We drafted him in our main event because, going to Philadelphia, that he has the kind of bat where, he could hit 50 homers and it wouldn't shock anyone. He came damn close with 46 last year. The 218 average to me seems like it was just a BABIP, bad luck there. Like, I definitely expect him to hit closer to, 240, 250, somewhere in that range. Yeah, I mean, I like him a lot. He also added 10 steals last year. And, this is a guy who does have some speed. Like, he's never really run consistently, but he's the kind of guy who can take advantage of some opportunities when given to him. So I could see him being a big beneficiary of the rules next year, where he might run. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to steal 20 plus, but he could steal 10, 12 again, something like that. 15 wouldn't shock me. For a guy who could hit 50 bombs with 10 to 15 homers or 10 to 15 steals, yeah, he's basically Aaron Judge with a worse hit tool. I mean, he's not going to hit 280, 290 or anything like that. I think his upside is probably like what you saw in 2021, 266. That you would pray for that. That would be amazing if he hits 266 again. But, even if he hits 240, considering everything else that he's giving you, that's really good. And I haven't looked where he's going yet. Let's see, pick 60. Yeah. I mean, it's not that he's not worth it. I just don't know if I'll be going that direction most times because I like a lot of the pitching that goes around that time, and I might be still trying to get some more steals at that point. But I don't think he's a bad pick. If you've started off with some guys who are maybe not getting you much power, he could be a nice pick-me-up at that point.
For me, kind of represents the last guy in the outfield I really, really want. Like,
wow, holy shit!
Outfield is terrible. I don't know if you have.
You can't even fill your outfield that early. Like, even if you picked all outfield until then, you'd be.
I mean, like, outfield is terrible. He's the 15th outfielder off the board, and he's the last one I.
There's a lot of outfilders after him that I'm interested in. What are you?
Not that I'm not interested in, but like that I don't have like a serious red flag about. Like, there's no like I mean.
All right.
Almost every other guy has like real red flags.
Okay, I mean,
the outfield pool this year just sucks. And obviously, like even if you're playing in a 10-team 3 outfielder league, you're gonna need more than 15. There's gonna be more than 15 outfielders drafted in your league. So,
right,
you just have to fill it with crap. But outfield is what catcher used to be, or what shortstop used to be before both those positions got a lot deeper. Outfield just is really, really terrible this year. So I can understand why he's going 60th. It feels really high.
It does. Yeah.
If and I love Kyle Schwarber. I had a lot of Kyle Schwarber last year. But like it feels really, really high. I'll probably do it. Just because, like I said, I hate what outfield looks like. And I made a joke on a podcast recently, like, screw pocket aces. I'm doing pocket outfielders. And Kyle Schwarber, if Kyle Schwarber is my number 2 outfielder, I'm feeling a lot better about my offense kind of moving forward.
Actually, if you draft from the number 1 slot and you take an outfielder first, then you get 30-31 and then 60-61, you could feasibly finish your outfield with Kyle Schwarber.
Hey, you start Julio Rodriguez 1, and then you take
or you can even go Acuna, or Julio,
you take Mike Trout and Michael Harris, at the 2-3 turn, and then Cedric Mullins, Kyle Schwarber.
What ADP are you looking at?
I'm looking at
from 12-1 to 1-2. You ain't got a shot at Cedric Mullins is going 47. He ain't going to be there at 60.
And Mike Trout and Michael Harris.
And Mike Trout and Michael Harris are both going like 23,
25. I'll take Luis Robert and Randy Rosarena at the 2-3 turn.
Okay.
And then I'm taking Kyle Schwarber, and I guess.
Okay, so I guess you can't finish it with 5.
Yeah, you can get 4.
You can get 4.
Yeah. Unless someone drops. You never know. Someone could drop.
True. Someone could drop.
Seems unlikely. But, like, how comfortable do you feel with Adolis Garcia? Because I don't feel comfortable with Adolis Garcia. I don't feel comfortable. I like Corbin Carroll's upside, but him going 66, it feels like an insanely high tax on a guy that really hasn't proven much at the major, proven much of anything. I like Eloy. I think Eloy is.
I like Eloy too. Now that he's not playing in the field anymore, I love Eloy. Yeah,
exactly. And there are other guys I like. Brian Reynolds, I think, is probably underrated this year.
Yeah, I just can't do it on Pittsburgh though. Fuck, God, that line is so bad.
Just hope he gets traded. All right, moving around the outfield, Nick Castellanos had just a really, really disappointing season. In 2022, are you expecting he will rebound some in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I like these opportunities where a guy who I'm pretty comfortable taking Nick Castellanos. Like, I feel like it was definitely, he took a hit by pitch, I think in like May, I don't know. Like, there's something like with his wife had a baby, and then he took a hit by pitch off his wrist. And wrist injuries are so bad for hitters because without your wrist, obviously, you can't do much. So, it definitely seemed like he was playing injured for most of the year. But then in August, he hit 5 home runs again. And but then he had like turf toe and oblique injury in September, I believe. I feel like this is a time to take advantage. Like, this is a guy whose skill set I feel pretty good about. Like, I think he's going to hit 25 to 30 homers with a 280, 290 average, with good counting stats. I'm definitely in on that. And that's what you want to do. You want to take advantage of those situations where you're getting guys at their low mark, where you're pretty confident that they're better than what they did last year, unless you have concerns that he's still injured going into next year, which it doesn't seem like any of those injuries would hurt him for next year. I'm looking at where he's going, like 131. Yeah, I like that spot a lot. There are a lot of guys around him that are going that I like too, though. But yeah, I'm in on Castellanos this year.
Yeah, I am too. I mean, I don't know if I'm as high on the batting average as you, but I do believe he'll hit 25 to 30 home runs as long as he's healthy, and I don't think there's a reason to think he's not. I think too that he will get more time at DH. I think part of the issue with Castellanos too was Harper couldn't play the field. Castellanos had to play the field. With Harper out early on, I think they could use him at DH more, kind of get him out of the field where he just struggles. I mean,
elites versus lefties, because they'll probably have Hall face righties, but yeah.
And so I think there'll just be opportunities to give him more of a break and give him a breather, and I think that'll be beneficial for him. I'm a big Castellanos guy. I was last year, was really disappointing.
Not great.
I didn't get him in a lot of my big money drafts, but I got him a lot early in draft season. So I'll be going back to the well on Castellanos.
Were you surprised that he was going 131? Like, I actually thought he might be going lower. I was actually.
I was surprised. I was initially surprised he was going as high as he was.
Yeah,
but then you look at the rest of the outfield pool.
No, I'm not saying it's too high. By no means am I saying 131 is too high. But considering just how bad his year was last year, it just sucks that people are still as sharp as they are, where they know better than to give too much of a discount there. Like, I thought he might be more in the 180.
Yeah, well, the problem is the guys going in the 180s are Oscar Gonzalez and Riley Green and Whit Merrifield, Joey Meneses. Like, these are I mean,
Cody Bellinger's going 177.
Yeah, the pool is just really, really bad this year, is what it in outfield, and that's the problem. So
okay. What about like Mitch Haniger at 172? Like, I'm kind of shocked he's going 40 picks after Castellanos. Honestly,
I am too.
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
But I think that's probably where Mitch Haniger should be going.
Yeah. I just thought that maybe Castellanos would be going around there or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought so too. But I'm okay with it considering the rest of the pool.
Yeah, no, it's still good.
My boy Brandon Marsh, he looks like he's going to be in line for full-time plate appearances. Even when Harper comes back, I think Brandon Marsh continues to get full-time plate appearances because he's a really, really good defender. And when you've got a guy like Nick Castellanos and a guy like Kyle Schwarber, manning the corners, you need a really good center fielder. Brandon Marsh is that. There is upside. There's power. There's speed. The contact skills are the thing in question. Is Brandon Marsh going to be a guy that I regret drafting on all my fantasy teams?
Yes. I was going to say, he's your boy. He ain't my boy. Yeah. This is a guy who, now through, 750 or something plate appearances in the majors, he's still got a K rate around 35%. This is way too high. He steals some bases and he hits some homers, but I mean, that average could crater with a K rate that high and a contact rate, he could easily find himself out of the lineup. I mean, he could be hitting 210, 220. And I get that he's really good defensively. So maybe it's a Miles Straw situation where they just bump him down to the 9 slot and keep playing him every day like the Guardians do. But I don't know, man. That's not a profile I'm interested in investing in at all.
Can I give you some counterpoints? Ready?
Yeah, you always do.
All right. From the trade to Philadelphia from the Angels on, he had an 87.5% zone contact rate, which is above league average. He had just
what time frame are we talking about? Like how many plate appearances?
It was from August 1st on.
Okay, so
we're talking. Yeah, we're talking 138 plate appearances. So it's a small sample for sure, right?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted.
He had an 11% swinging strike rate during that time. He hit 288, had 3 home runs and 2 stolen bases.
Okay.
He also had a few times in which he led off during that time for Philadelphia. He's a former top prospect. These guys get buried when they struggle. They come up to the major leagues. I just think he's one of those guys that maybe needs a little bit more time to kind of adjust to major league pitching. He's getting that opportunity in Philadelphia. He's a guy you don't have to pay a ton for. I like Brandon Marsh a lot. I think he's an upside play. Power, speed. He showed the ability towards the end of the season that he can hit for contact. I think Brandon Marsh is I don't want to call him a sleeper because I don't think those things really exist. But I think he's just Aren't
you on a podcast called The Sleeper and the Bust?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
But sleepers don't exist?
I think in today's day and age, are there really sleepers? I mean, I get, they're definitely busts. But sleepers are not, I don't think sleepers are really a thing anymore.
Okay.
When every single fantasy analyst writes some sort of article entitled Sleepers for 2023, there's no such thing as sleepers. There are guys who are undervalued and guys who are overvalued. But
can we just rename your pod The Bust? Might be more accurate.
It might just become The Bust and the Bust.
Or maybe The Bust and the guys who are just really undervalued or whatever you put. The
undervalued and the bust.
The undervalued and the bust. Yeah, it really flows off the tongue. It's very natural sounding. Yeah, I think that could work. I mean, hey, if this is a guy that you feel good about, go ahead. I would advise not putting him on every team, but it's not like it's going to break you. It's not like he goes at an early enough point where it's going to really crush you. But 288,
288 is fine.
It is. There's probably other guys that would take at that point over him, but I mean, it's just.
And the thing is, he won't end up on all my teams because there'll be someone in my drafts that go, I like Brandon Marsh. Maybe. I know Justin likes Brandon Marsh, and I'm going to take. This will be like the guy I get in all of my early drafts, and then just like Cedric Mullins, I won't get him in any of my drafts. So if he breaks out, I'm just gonna, fucking eat it, I guess. Do we care about Matt Vierling at all?
Yeah, I do actually. I actually low key really like Matt Vierling. Like I really wish he was getting playing time. I do like him as, I mean, you can get him super late, obviously, because he's not even starting really, right? Like I'm pretty sure he's the fourth outfielder there now, right?
Yeah, he's a fourth outfielder until Bryce Harper comes back, and then he's the fifth outfielder.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of similar to Stott, like with the power, speed, batting average combo. I think he's a guy who he just needs to get more playing time. He doesn't strike out a lot. He's got a good max EV, 112, 47% hard hit rate. He doesn't barrel a ton of the balls, but he raised his launch angle last year. He doubled it from 6 to 12. Yeah, I mean, zone contact rate is 89.5%, contact rate 82%. I like Vierling. He's a guy who I would take in some DCs, and at some point just assume that he's going to get some playing time in that outfield. It's not exactly a picture of health out there, so I could certainly see him getting some playing time and being useful.
Yeah, I mean he's going pick 557 in draft champions since December 1st. Like, yeah, I mean that's pretty damn cheap. He does have power, he does have speed. He actually has pretty good contact skills if he finds his way into a full-time role.
Right.
For instance, like Bryce Harper. Let's say Bryce Harper's out till the All-Star break, and Nick Castellanos has had injury issues during his career. Goes down, like he would likely become their like everyday right fielder.
Yep.
And I think he could become very interesting. So I think he'll have a hard time maintaining a spot once Harper comes back. But who knows? Let's say Brandon Marsh is just atrocious. Like, I know Vierling's not a very good defender in center field necessarily, but he played like 60 games there last year. So like he could do it if they needed him to.
Yeah, and I still think that there's a chance that they could end up benching Marsh despite his good defense. So yeah,
then that's what I mean. I think there's there's.
I mean, clearly, defense is not of the highest concern for this team. With the, I mean, they have several guys who should be playing DH. So I mean, they clearly don't care that much about defense.
Yeah, but you got to have then one guy who picks up the other guys, right? And I think that's what Marsh did. But like you're right, they could just say, "Screw it,
yeah,
we're just gonna out hit you."
But I'm pretty sure Bryce Harper played a decent amount of center field last year, right?
No, he DH'd most of the year because of his elbow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
or maybe not last year, but in the past.
He has played it. He has played it in the past. I don't think they want Bryce Harper being the everyday DH. So.
No, and they shouldn't want him to be the everyday center fielder. But I still thought he played there.
Sorry, everyday. I don't even know if he played there at all last year.
No, I'm wrong. Yeah, he hasn't played there. I mean, he played 3 games in 2020, but not since like 2018. So, and that was in Washington. Yeah. Okay, never mind.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the pitching staff. Aaron Nola, Zack Wheeler, they're aces. Do you have any problem with there being your like SP1 or high end SP2s?
No, my only problem with Nola is that like he's a stud, but with his approach, like he can have a bad, like not bad, but his ERA isn't necessarily like, I don't feel as good about his ERA being like constantly under 3 as even a guy like Wheeler. And for where I have to take Nola, at pick 39, I just don't love him there. Like he's really good, and it's not that he's not worth it, but like, at pick 65, I can get Kevin Gausman, and I feel just as good about Gausman as I do about Nola pretty much. Like, I don't know, just there's nothing about Nola that screams take me at pick 39 is basically what I'm saying. Like he's very, very good. I don't think you're going to regret taking him, but at the same point, it's just too early for me. There's just other, like Zack Wheeler at pick 54. I'd much rather do Wheeler at 54 than Nola at 39. I'm a big Wheeler fan. The guy is a workhorse. 3 straight years, sub 3 ERA. Slight concern with the velocity being down last year. He was around 96, whereas he was at 97 before that. But kind of like Bieber, he can make it work anyways. It's still really, 96 is still very good. But his slider, sinker, curve, four-seamer, he's just a great pitcher that you can rely on. I know he missed some games last year, but overall, I don't see anything going into this year that would prevent him health-wise from not pitching 200 innings again.
Yeah, I'm with you on both guys. I'm probably higher on Nola than you are. I just think he's such a stable guy. But I have no problem with either of these guys being my 1 or my SP2. I really don't. Like, I just I like Wheeler a little bit more just because of the discount. Like, I don't think they're that far apart in terms of overall kind of end of the year stats, and Wheeler's going like a full round after Nola. So, but there could be a team where I just end up with both these guys. Like, I had no problem with, going Nola as my SP1 and Wheeler as my SP2. So, all right, moving right along. You and I talked a little bit about Taijuan Walker after he signed. You and I are both not fans of the landing spot, of kind of I like what Walker does generally, but I think this is like the worst possible landing spot for him. He went from a team that had a great park in the Mets and a pretty darn good defense behind him to a team that the defense has gotten better, but I don't think it's great by any stretch of imagination. The park is atrocious for a guy like Walker. Anything changed for you since we last talked about him?
No, I mean, we talked about him before we got on the podcast today too. Like, none of his pitches. First of all, he has too many pitches too. Like, he throws 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pitches. Well, I don't know if he's still throwing all of them, but four-seamer, splitter, slider, sinker, curveball, cutter. Like, yeah, it's too many pitches, man. Like, and he doesn't. None of them garner swinging strikes really. Like, the splitter is the only one that gets swinging strikes, and it's not even good compared to other splitters. So he's just very blah. Like, it's not that he can't be useful as like a filler guy who you can just put in there to get you 150 innings of maybe 3.8, 3.9 ERA, 1.2 WHIP, something like that, with an like a little bit of strikeouts but not much, and then hoping he gets you wins on a good offense. But I don't see much upside there, and I'd rather take shots on guys who I think could massively outproduce their draft slot, and I don't think he's that guy.
Yeah, I'm with you. That. What about Ranger Suarez? I feel like Ranger Suarez is kind of the opposite. Like,
yeah,
I don't think people realize how good Ranger Suarez was last year.
Yeah, I mean, he limits hard contact. I mean, he's not going to give you the strikeouts, but guys can't really square up the ball very well versus him. But he is good, but at the same time, you want that 1.33 whip, or like,
that's the hard part. Yeah, he's a whip killer. He was fantastic in the postseason. He had a 102 whip in the postseason.
Yeah, small sample, but yeah,
it is a small sample, but I mean, I just feel like he's going so much lower than other guys. That
I think he can help you in on some teams, like where you need a stable guy. Like, let's say you've built a very high upside volatile rotation, maybe with guys like DeGrom and stuff like that, and then maybe a guy like Ranger Suarez fits in there who you can kind of depend on for innings, but you don't necessarily need the Ks as much. I just don't see him ending up on many of my rosters. Like, that's just not that range of starting pitchers in general. I hate. Like, there's a lot of slop in there until we get to a guy like Zach Eflin that we like later, and maybe Dre Jameson for me. I don't know. I'd rather take on guys who I think have a little bit more upside than that.
Yeah, I'm pulling up my ranks that I finally finished my my starting pitcher projections. So I've got an updated of where my projections puts a guy like Suarez, if my computer will let me actually find him. And I have him as my 64th starting pitcher. So it still places him quite a bit higher than where his ADP is going. So he probably will end up on a couple of my teams this year. But that, I think you have to have a really strong whip base. And the hard part is, and I've talked about this with other guys, do I want, starting pitchers can only affect 4 categories, right? Yep. So if I'm not getting strikeouts and I'm getting a bad whip, why do I want to draft a 2-category starter for me?
Yeah.
Like, that becomes a really big question, right?
Yeah.
And very rarely are you going to be in a position where you're at pick 250 or 260 in a draft and you go, oh, my ERA is needs some help, but my whip is fantastic. Like, when are you really going to be in that situation? Like, I
Never,
just,
much, yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I may need to readjust my calculations a little bit on that, because I don't think while he, maybe by pure numbers comes out as, hey, he's, a top 70 starter. I don't know if I'm ever going to be in a position where I'm going to take him as a top 70 starter.
Nah, there's guys going after him that I'd rather just take a shot on that could be significantly better than him. So that's the direction that I'm going to go.
All right. Finishing out with Bailey Falter. I also think that the Phillies could be a team that adds a starter here at some point, because they don't have a ton like in the high minors or anything like that may be ready to go necessarily. But Bailey Falter had some usable moments. Any interest in him?
Oh yeah. Yeah, he more than useful. I mean, he was man from
he was really good down the stretch.
Yeah. He was a major pickup in the second half. I recall. Yeah, I don't, you look at his breakdown, of his pitches and everything, and it doesn't particularly look like anything that should be really good, but the total package is still intriguing. Like he finds a way to make it work. I mean, his four seamer is only 91 miles an hour, but his I don't love guys who throw sinkers because they don't get a lot of Ks, but at least he's able to limit the hard contact with that. But he's got a curveball and a slider. He really upped the curveball usage from 3% to 16.5% last year, and that got 13% swing strikes. The slider 18%. Yeah, I just think like he's a guy who I don't know if this is just like maybe the recency bias of seeing how good he was last year, but he intrigues me, and I could see myself drafting a good amount of Bailey Falter this year, assuming he doesn't go, assuming he doesn't get overdrafted or anything. But right now he's like 408, so yeah, I like him at that point.
Mm-hmm. I feel like he's one of these guys that is just going to get murdered at one point.
He could.
He lives so much in the zone. Like he just does. And he gives up a lot of fly ball. I feel like he's a guy who benefited from a deadened ball. And MLB,
weak opponents, yeah.
And weak opponents, he gives up like above league average contact. He had a 44% fly ball percentage. Max EV of 116. I think he got really fucking lucky. Is what it was.
It's possible. He did over a decent sized sample, though. I mean, we're not talking, it's just you look at the game log and you look at it. It's just like, yeah, I hear you and I see it, and you're right. It does look like it's not going to work, but I don't know. There's just something about it that makes me think that maybe it can to some extent. I'm not putting a ton of faith in it, but for where he goes, it's not like it costs me a lot. But kind of reminds me of his teammate Ranger Suarez from 2021. You remember how he had that really huge end of the year where he was striking out all these guys. He ended up with over a 9K per 9 rate. And everyone was like, well, okay, hold on. Like he faced the Pirates and all these other teams. And they're like, he's not going to strike out that many guys. And lo and behold, his K rate went down, 1.5 down to 7.5 from 9. So, it does depend on who you're playing too, for sure. So, but he is in a weak division. If you're facing the Marlins a good amount, it's that certainly helps.
He kind of, well, I mean, it's not a weak division.
That's true, but they have some weak opponents. Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't have to face his own team in the division, which is nice. What he did was very similar to like what Robbie Ray did, which was like, I'm just going to attack the zone. If you hit it, you hit it. The problem is
Robbie Ray throws a lot better.
The problem is he doesn't have Robbie Ray stuff.
Right.
And so he will get hit around. He was in the zone like almost 47% of the time. That is not going to fly long term. I just think I think that the Phillies will add someone, but two, I think if he is a full-time starter, he is going to run into a lot of trouble. I think you can use him as like a streamer as a guy like you kind of put in and out of your lineup on good matchups. Teams that maybe struggle against lefties. If it's a team, hey, this team struggles against left-handed pitching. I'm gonna throw Bailey Falter in there, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that outside of your DCs is going to be on your roster the whole year. Like he's just a guy that's going to kind of come up and got a good matchup or two, and then you're going to drop him for the next guy.
Yeah, because you look at who he did well against was Washington, Miami, Arizona, Pittsburgh. He did have a good game against Atlanta, but I mean,
what happened? Here's the thing: what happened in the next game?
So and then the next time Atlanta,
you went and faced them again, and they went, "Oh, okay, now we know
that scares me even with good pitchers, though. Honestly, like I hate when my pitchers face the same team twice in a row. Like it almost never goes well for the pitcher. Like if they have a really good outing the first time, the second time, like that team knows what they're doing when they're facing him. They're like, okay, we're ready for him now. And I hate that. But yes, they crushed him the second time.
In his defense, because he fills up the zone, he doesn't walk guys. Like, we're talking about a guy who's not going to put, so when he gives up a home run, it's usually going to be a solo shot, right? Because he's not going to have like the bases loaded or two guys on or anything like that. And so he may be able to get away with this approach more than other guys because he's not going to give up like really stupid walks or,
right.
But it just means he's going to just give up home runs, especially as like the ground ball to fly ball rate, kind of readjusts in Citizens Bank Park or whatever the hell they're calling it nowadays. Moving on to kind of the relievers, Seranthony Dominguez is kind of projected closer right now, but they also signed Craig Kimbrel. They have Jose Alvarado, who, could get some saves depending on, where a team's at in their lineup and stuff like that. Is there a guy that you're targeting out of this kind of trio?
Honestly, I mean, unless I'm getting a big discount on Kimbrel, because I mean they signed him for $10 million for 1 year, so they're clearly he's their closer. Now, right now I'm seeing his ADP is really low, but that's probably prior to him signing. So I that means nothing right now. Kimbrel will be the closer. The question is whether he's 35 now. Is he going to get that velo back up? Because I think he was a lot more hittable last year. I mean, velo isn't the entire problem, but going from 97 or 96 and a half down to below 96, I don't think he can really survive there. I mean, his whip's been pretty much, other than 2021, his whip has been bad since 2019, 2020. He's had mechanical issues with his mechanics. Seranthony Dominguez is basically just a better pitcher than him, but I still think that Kimbrel is going to be the guy that gets the save opportunities, at least until he proves that he can't handle it anyhow. So, yeah, I probably just want to avoid this situation. Maybe in draft and holds, if Dominguez falls a bit, I would maybe take him as a backup guy and a guy you could put in to get you good ratios, even if he's not closing. But it's not really a situation I love right now.
Dominguez is currently going at pick 175. Kimbrel's going like 390.
Yeah, that'll flip though. I mean, once people realize
it'll change around. But I mean, like the max on Dominguez over the last month or so is 206. And the min on Kimbrel is 199. So maybe they come together. But God, I just feel like Kimbrel is going to be the guy who gets the shot. Like I said, I probably want to avoid this situation the best I can. And so far I have. But I think if I'm taking a guy, I'm probably taking the dart on Kimbrel.
But I guess when I said that, I'm assuming Kimbrel's going to be eventually, like by the time live mains come around, he's going to be going around pick maybe towards like 120, 130. He's not going to be.
I'm not going to touch that price.
Right. He's not. But there's zero chance you're going to get him anywhere around 200 or something. Like there's no way. And this team, never committed to Dominguez. I mean, they used 4 different closers in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Zach Eflin, Alvarado, Dominguez got one. and then Ranger Suarez got one. So like, you know, they're not committed to anybody. It's going to be Kimbrel coming in with the But if Kimbrel fails, I think Dominguez is a good guy to have on your roster.
I think Dominguez is the guy they want as the high leverage guy.
Yeah, that could be too.
And so I do think Kimbrel gets the first shot. If Kimbrel gets too expensive, then I'll just, you know, I don't want him being my first closer. Like I have no interest in him. I mean, honestly, I prefer him as my number 3 closer in every situation. So, all right, that's gonna wrap us up for this episode. Dave, what do you got going on, and where can people reach you at?
You can reach me at RunDMCD on Twitter. Add that D. And so I will say, Jake sent me a text today. Now, you know, take this for a grain of salt because it's Jake, but he said that he was going to talk to me about doing a pod soon. So we will.
He was going to talk to you about doing a pod soon. That is like the most non-committal answer ever.
I mean, you know, it's Jake, so
just get his ass on here as a guest. We can just like, you know.
Oh, he did something that right? Was it for you or was it for someone else?
Not for me.
No, like a month or so ago, maybe. He did something, or maybe was it PitchCon? No, not PitchCon. What's the other thing? No, you're yeah.
That was in August.
That was in August.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
Wait, well, okay. Was he?
I enjoyed having him on.
Yeah, he's great.
And I believe that was the podcast for TGFBI that I submitted for FSWA nominations. Was that episode? But yeah, that was August.
God, yeah,
it's a really good episode. Go back and listen to it.
Yeah,
go to my YouTube and watch it. It's him and Jenny Butler and
that's right. Yeah.
I can't remember who the other people were. Maybe Scott Genstad was on that one.
Sounds right. I was I was so bummed to miss it. I don't remember what I had going on, but I couldn't make it. But yeah,
will be coming back in at the beginning of or the end of February, early March, whenever like TGFBI drafts kick off. So you can sign up for TGFBI drafts right now if you want. You have already done it. I know that because you submitted something stupid in the
that doesn't sound like me at all. You must be mistaken.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if Dave said where you can follow him at. You can follow him on Twitter.
I did. Yeah. So anyways, the things that I'm doing is maybe doing a pod with Jake soon. So we'll see. And then I'll also be doing some of these team previews with you coming up, hopefully. Yeah.
Yeah. You can reach me on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. Email me to the show, friendsofinstantbenefits@gmail.com. Writing daily at Fangraphs, so I actually got to write an article after this. I have no idea what I'm going to write about for tomorrow. And then doing obviously podcasts here, podcast Sleeper in the Bus, podcast on tgfbi.com as well. Give us a 5-star review. Gonna give away a RotoWare t-shirt every month for the next 3 months. Until the start of the season. Hopefully we can get as many 5-star reviews in as possible. Really, really helps us out, those 5-star reviews. With that, for Dave and myself, thank you for listening. Have fantastic baseball